with the Committee on Women, Family Relations, and Gender Equality is hereby called to order. Good morning, everyone. We are here to take up PS Resolution number 266, filed by my colleague, Honorable Senator Paulo Benigno Bam Aquino, the fourth. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Entitled Land Currently Occupied by the Philippine Children Medical Center. We'd like to acknowledge the resource persons who are here this morning. From the Department of Health, Yusek Nemesio Gako, Maimbontag. From the Philippine Children Medical Center, Dr. Julius Lecciones.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Good morning,
Yes,
sir.
good morning. From the PCMC, Dr. Vicente Gomez. Good morning. From the National Housing Authority, the General Manager, Attorney Chito Cruz. Good morning, sir. Also, Attorney Sinforoso Pagunsan. Good morning. From the Land Registration Authority, Administrator Attorney Eulalio C. Diaz III. Good morning, sir. The Acting Register of Deeds of Quezon City, Attorney Emmanuel Leonardo. Morning. And the Assistant Chief State Counsel, DOJ. Yeah, it's good DOJ is here because there might be some legal issues. Attorney Pastor Benavides. Good morning, sir. Immediate past President, Lungsod ng Kabataan, PCMC Medical Alumni Association, Dr. Sonia Gonzalez. Good morning, ma'am. President Project Brave Kids, an NGO of the pediatric cancer patients, Mr. Paul Perez. Good morning, sir. The President of the Samahan ng mga Kawani ng PCMC, Ms. Lucila Encina. Good morning, ma'am. And Ms. Ana Saplor, Head Convener of AKAP Bata. Yes, good morning. Mamaya, during the hearing, the chair or any senator asks you a question, please put on the mic first and talk into the mic para yung stenographers, because he's being transcribed, can hear you. Okay? I understand, PCMC, you have a presentation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, so sige, would you like to proceed?
Yeah. Sir, may I ask your permission for Dr. Gomez to make this presentation?
Okay, fine, no problem. Please proceed.
All right. Good morning. I'd like to present the case of PCMC and our situation regarding the land. And one of the major reasons this is important for us is because, in line with the PPP of President Aquino, we are trying to start a construction expansion program. But since we do not own the titles, or we do not hold the titles of the land, we are unable to do any kind of construction. I'd like to just give you a short introduction about our hospital. We're actually the premier tertiary care hospital under the Department of Health. It's built in 1979 by the First Lady Imelda Marcos, and it's part of the entire chain of hospitals, Heart Center, Lung Center, etc. Originally, the land was under the Metro Manila Commission, and there was a plan of the First Lady then, Mrs. Marcos, to have a city of children, which would include the park, the school, and that's why it's located beside the Philippine Science High School. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, the mission of the PCMC since its inception has been service, training, research in education. Next slide, please. These are former directors. Dr. Lecciones is the present director. Next slide. And these are the different services that we have. Now, when we talk about our centers of excellence, I wanted to point out that we are the premier center in the country under the Department of Health and even among the private hospitals that specialize in these services. We're talking about cancer, urology, neurosurgery, congenital problems, pulmonary problems, and asthma. We're doing work on dengue. We have nephrology, craniofacial, and adolescent medicine. You have the next slide. We also have specialty centers located inside the hospital. The first Philippine Pediatric Cancer Center, the first Pediatric Rehabilitation Center. We have the only pediatric blood bank, the only pediatric milk bank, and then we have our neonatal ICUs, pediatric ICUs. We have now a congenital heart surgery team and a project called the Teen Republic, which addresses adolescent medical problems. Next slide. Give an idea, we have many people who train with us. There are about 73 residents in pediatrics, 64 fellows in subspecialties. We have research journals. There are 190 interns that rotate under us and 100 nurses under a program called RN Heals. Next slide. This is the present staffing of the hospital. You can see that we have 197 consultants, our residents in training, and our fellows, interns, nurses, and the administrative staff. Okay. Next slide. The hospital has also been awarded many awards, and these have to do with our delivery of services and our compliance with many of the systems like ISO, and we have been recognized by the Philippine Pediatric Society and the national government as being one of the premier hospitals in terms of delivery of healthcare for children. Next slide, please. This is just an idea of how our increasing volume of patients. The green line above is our total number of consultations. The red line is, if you look below, is our outpatient, and the yellow is our emergency room. So as you can see, as the years have gone by, our population of patients is fairly high. Now the next slide. This is also our census, our admissions and discharges, to show you again that our population keeps increasing. Thus the need for us to have an expansion and to build new wings and new buildings. Next slide. And this is just very quickly our admissions of the pay versus our service. As you can see, over the years, the number of our service or charity patients has increased relative to our pay. Can I have the next slide? Now, I just wanted to give you a short history. Originally, we occupied 6.4 hectares of land. These are all in the annexes that are available for us to look at for reference. So we started operations in 1980, and it's located from the Philippine Science High School all the way to Quezon Boulevard. And originally, it was 6.4 hectares. Can I have the next slide? This is a map of what the hospital is. The Philippine Children's Medical Center is the yellow, the white structure, and that red area that's outlined is the original lot that was allocated for us. Okay, so that the upper border of that line is where Philippine Science High School is located now, and the lower border is Quezon Boulevard, and the far left is Agham Road, and on the far right is Parks and Wildlife. Okay, next slide. If you refer to Annex B1, what happened was in 1979, there was a charter that defined where we are, and that the property of the lungsod is consisted of the real personal mix and other type of property. And this was basically assigned to us back in 1979. So the property where we were was assigned to our hospital. Can I have the next slide? There were some documents at the time just after EDSA, there was a changeover from the Metro Manila Commission, I believe, to the NHA. Okay, so and this property was again recognized by the NHA in this document, which is in Annex B2. Can I have the next slide? In 1992, in February, there was an agreement. There was a conveyance of land in Sambag, Cebu, which was assigned basically to the DOH. And there was supposed to be executed a swapping between the Department of Health for the land of Philippine Children's Medical Center and the land in Sambag, Cebu that was supposed to be a DOH land. We have some documents of this, but we'll make reference to that later. Can I have the next slide? Okay. In 2001, there was this is about a month after EDSA 2, President Arroyo directed the conveyance again of the DOH real property in Barangay Sambag in Cebu City in favor of the NHA. She made reference to the original MOA dated February 1992. It is our belief at the time that the Malacanang recognized that the swapping had already been done, and they had directed the NHA then to start distributing the properties. Can I have the next slide? This MOA was so signed by the then DOH Secretary Alfredo Bengson. This is a 1992 MOA. And the general manager of the NHA at the time, Mr. Balao, or Attorney Balao. Okay. Can I have the next slide? In the 2001, in reference to the 2001 directive of the President Arroyo, it was signed then by Executive Secretary Renato de Villa, and it basically reminded again or directed the DOH and NHA to implement the President's directive immediately and to conduct the necessary surveys regarding the Sambag property. This was directed to NHA. We have the next slide. In July 2001, the project manager from the NHA, Mr. Gavino Figuracion, informed the Secretary Dairit at the time that there was a problem regarding one of the lots in Cebu. This, for us, is an realization that the NHA did have that property and that they were holding that property under their stead, and that we were not sure whether they had recognized, likewise, that the property had been swapped with the Department of Health in PCMC. Okay, can we have the next slide? In 2003 again, the date of conveyance was again stated that with Dr. Dairit signing it, then Secretary Dairit signing it, and the NHA General Manager, Mr. Edgardo Pamintuan. They identified 6 parcels of land, and we have some documentation regarding the types of this land. But there was no written transmission from the NHA transferring the title of the land that the PCMC was sitting on to the Department of Health or to the PCMC. We had already asked also at the time, then Hospital Director Lillian Lee, Dr. Lillian Lee, whether she was made aware of this agreement, and she said she was not aware. Okay, can I have the next slide? In October 2013, we were able to recover some TCTs regarding the Cebu Sambag properties, which stated that basically the NHA had already subdivided to a total of 1,028 individual occupants and distributed them already. We feel then that this is again a recognition of the fact from NHA that the land, this property in Sambag was in their possession, and that they were already disposing it as per their directive from the national government. But again, the PCMC did not have a copy of our title from our land. Okay, can you have the next slide? Make reference then in 1996 that President Ramos, from Presidential Proclamation 857, had declared that there would be a transfer of 25,906 square meters of the PCMC lot to the Office of the Ombudsman. This is the, if you can have the next slide. This basically reduced the size of the land given of PCMC because of the land given to the Ombudsman. Can I have the next slide? This is a map of an aerial map of the Ombudsman's office, which is that white building on the top, and the amount and the land that had been cut down. So PCMC's lot now is just a smaller area as outlined in red. Okay, can I have the next slide? In September of 2005, President Arroyo transferred 6,000 square meters of our lot to the Court of Tax Appeals, and this further reduced the size of our lot to its present 3.7 hectares. See, if you look at the next slide, this is the building of the Court of Tax Appeals, which is in green. And so our lot is now has been cut down even further. So this is the remaining lot that we have right now. Okay, can I have the next slide? Okay. So again, if you look at the map, basically, in the records of the NHA, and we have this posted, we will have below the screen, we basically have this map. And this is a location map of our current 3.7 hectares. And it's important to note that it is divided into two parcels. There's a lot A, which is 2.1 hectares, and an L-shaped lot B, which is 1.6 hectares. The main hospital is located, can I have the next slide? Okay. There. This is just an idea. We drew a line across to show you where this lot B is located. Can you have the next slide again? This is a drawing, a schematic drawing. Okay. The main hospital is located in predominantly in lot A, and about a fourth to a third of the main building is in lot B. So lot A is closer to Quezon Boulevard, and that is lot B. Sitting in lot B, aside from part of the hospital, is our engineering building and our waste disposal and our material recovery facility, or MRF. Okay. So can I have the next slide? In August of 2013, the NHA actually made a contract, had an agreement, and they sold to the PIDS, Philippine Institute for Developmental Studies, 2,500 square meters from our lot B. And the hospital, under our director, Dr. Lecciones, opposed this and wanted this avoided and nullified. Okay, can I have the next slide? We have basically Xerox copies of this undated and unnotarized deed of absolute sale, and it is here in Annex C1. And it states, it's dated August 2, 2013, and it states that they are accepting from PIDS the amount of 83 million, from the PIDS SARO of 100 million, where the amount was taken to buy the parcel of land. On another point, we had discovered that the SARO that the PIDS had was actually meant for their MOOE and not for land acquisition. Can I have the next slide? The PCMC had filed letters of objection to the NHA and to the PIDS between that period of 2012 to 2014, with corresponding replies from them, and these annexes are all in your documents. The NHA had appraised the land at 32,500 pesos per square meter, and we were asked then to finalize an offer to buy the lots that were being occupied by the PCMC and pay the NHA. Okay, can I have the next slide? Sorry, the next slide again. That one. So this is an area, you see with the yellow line. This is that lot in question that they had sold to the PIDS. We were told at the time that actually the hospital was encroaching on this lot in the property, and that if we did not buy it, then we would have to either vacate it, or we would have to demolish it, or move to another location. Okay. We'll have the next slide. So like I said, the NHA had identified the lot P. In October 2012, the NHA had submitted a document to the Office of the President when they were asked as to identify properties under the NHA that they felt were residual areas. And they identified our lot B as one of these properties that had residual areas. And we were told then that it was encroaching land. However, in that document, they had stated that sitting on that residual area were some buildings and structures that were used by the hospital. Okay, you look at the next slide, please. The PCMC replied that the residual land was being occupied was providing essential services to the hospital, and as part of the hospital since 1980. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that the PCMC again is appealing this is because in our operational budget, there is no money to purchase this land, which I understand to be about 1.2 billion pesos. Okay. So we again appeal to the NHA to help the PIDS find another location while we try to negotiate for the money or the fund to purchase this lot. You can have the next slide. We also were able to secure a copy from the COA, the audit report for the PIDS, stating that this purchase of this land was a bad investment, and this was their recommendation to PIDS. You have the next slide. The PCMC also used as one of our defenses Republic Act 7279, or the Urban Development and Housing Act, which was signed by President Cory in March 1992. This act basically exempts hospitals from the coverage of the disposal of government land. And in particular, it states that any land that is used for religious, charitable, educational purposes, cultural, historical sites, and hospitals and health centers are exempt. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so this again is the details of RA 7279 that we are using as our defense with regards to the sale of our property. Okay, we have the next slide. In September 2013, we asked for an endorsement of support from the President regarding the land to forestall any sale of the property to the PIDS, sorry. Next slide, please. In October 2013, there was a memorandum from Secretary Ochoa to DNR Secretary Ramon Paje, and again, accepting and seeing our predicament and trying to find a solution to our problem. Now the next slide. We also secured, we found that in 2011, if you backtrack a little, there was a memorandum from NHA General Attorney Chito Cruz to Vice President Jejomar Binay, who is the head of, if I understand, of the NHA, regarding the priority dispositions of prime properties in the Quezon City Central Business District. This was a plan to develop by the private sector, to develop a large part of the property they call the North Triangle, with a tripartite approach. And they had identified our property as being allocated for PCSO. And in that document, they had recognized that the PCMC lot, 1.6 hectares of this lot, was occupied by structures and facilities of the hospital. Okay. Can I have the next slide? This is basically just an account of the different communications that we had made regarding to our securing money to purchase the lot to the DBM Secretary Andaya, and likewise a letter to Vice President Binay in his capacity as the head of NHA, appealing for a donation of the lot to PCMC. May I have the next slide? In August of 2014, the Philippine Children's Medical Center was provided copies of titles that were distributed by the NHA and registered by the LRA to about 1,028 homeowners who were occupying the Sambag property that was swapped. For us, in effect, it shows that the NHA is aware of the swap and recognizes that the property belongs to the NHA and not to the Department of Health or to PCMC. And this, in effect, consummates the agreement of the swapping of the land. Okay. This is a series of just copies of the different lot titles. You have the next slide. Okay, and then the next slide. And the next slide. And the next. Okay, and the next. Okay. So basically, this is the situation. This is the timeline of our the hospital's attempts to secure the title for the land so that we can build it, and our communications with the National Housing Authority regarding this. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. I understand NHA also has a presentation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, maybe we could have your presentation now.
Yes.
Please proceed.
The presentation will be done by Attorney Pagunsan. Good morning, Your Honors, Senator Gingona and Senator Aquino. I will present the position of the National Housing Authority on the PCMC issue. Next slide, please. Okay. We have here a historical data of what transpired, but we will move to the third slide, okay, where we can very well see what happened with respect to this PCMC land. Next slide, please. Okay. In 1938, okay, the National Housing Authority, through its predecessor agency, the PHHC, acquired this property where PCMC site now stands. Okay, it has been acquired, paid for by the National Housing Authority to the Tuason family. This formed part previously of the Diliman estate. That is why it is very important for the National Housing Authority to state this, because this was not given to NHA for free. This was acquired by PHHC, the predecessor of NHA. Next slide, please. Okay. In 1954, we have a proclamation, that is number 42, which declared the entire area as the Quezon Memorial Park. Okay. However, in the next slide, you will see that, okay, a portion of this was withdrawn from as a Quezon Memorial Park. As you will see, the one down in the below colored violet was declared by under this proclamation as a national government center. So it will not anymore be for parks, wildlife, but shall be a center for all government agencies in this area. And that is where PCMC and the rest of the government agencies now are located. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. In 1969, okay, there was Proclamation 616, okay, and the one on the area to the one shaded yellow has been declared as a site for the Philippine Science High School. What you will find to the right of that shaded yellow is where the PCMC, part of the PCMC main building stands. Okay, next slide, please. The allocation to the Philippine Science High School does not mean that it will be given for free to Philippine Science High School. It has to pay for that because, as mentioned earlier, the predecessor agency of NHA, which is PHHC, has purchased this lot and has paid for this. Okay. So therefore, as you will see in the yellow, within the yellow boundary, that is what the Philippine Science High School has paid for to NHA. It could not pay for the entire 127,000 square meters or 12.7 hectares. It only could acquire 7.5 hectares where it now stands. Apparently, it cannot pay for the rest, and so out of the initial 127,000, 42 to the right remained free as owned by NHA, and the one in the red, the one shaded red also remained to be NHA property to this date. Okay, next slide, please. Then in 1975, President Marcos issued this memorandum directing all agencies allocated any government office within the National Government Center to pay for their respective sites to the National Housing Authority. Next slide, please. Okay. This is, in 1979, this is the charter now of PCMC, previously Lungsod ng Kabataan. Okay. To the mind of the NHA, well, previously we saw in the slide that it will own what it owns and allocated to it, but we have read the charter. It does not there indicate that that area, 21,430 square meters, is owned by NHA, because as it now stands, the title is in the name of NHA, nor is there any allocation to PCMC in that charter proclamation number 1631. This is unlike, let us say, allocating so many square meters to the Ombudsman. It does not say allocating so many square meters to the Court of Tax Appeals. Okay, that is the charter then. Next slide, please. Okay. In 1992, this is what was mentioned earlier. There was a memorandum of agreement between the National Housing Authority and the Department of Health, wherein it is indicated that the Cebu Sambag property of the DOH, as mentioned earlier, will be conveyed to NHA supposedly in exchange for NHA conveying the site where PCMC now stands. Okay, next slide, please. So we have here the relevant provisions of the MOA. It will show that the board of directors clearly directed that what it will convey, the DOH will convey to NHA, and NHA to DOH will be value for value. It even states that this is what NHA is supposed to convey, 6.3 hectares as mentioned earlier. And then on the part of DOH, next slide please, okay. That is what was mentioned earlier, 4.2 hectares and 2.1 hectares, because at that time, the 4.2 hectares is the residual of that area that was supposed to be allocated to Philippine Science High School, but since they only paid for 7.5 hectares, there was a residual of 4.2 hectares, and this is adjacent to that area which is supposedly occupied by PCMC, 2.1 hectares, so that is for a total of 6.3 hectares, okay? And on the other hand, the DOH is supposed to convey to NHA the properties that are here flashed on your screen, okay? Next slide, please. Okay. As I had mentioned, okay, it is very clear in the MOA that it is value for value. Whatever is the value of the properties, that sambag property of DOH, that it will convey to NHA, okay, that the corresponding, the balance, if any, which cannot be delivered by DOH to NHA, will have to be paid by DOH to NHA in 2 years' time, and therefore, until that happens, NHA cannot in turn convey its Quezon City property to the Department of Health, okay? And so that was the terms and conditions of the MOA. Next slide, Totem. Subsequently, there was this, okay, right after the execution of the Memorandum of Agreement, the General Manager, the previous General Manager of the National Housing Authority, G.M. Balao, wrote the OIC of the Department of Health, Dr. Periquet, reminding him to comply with the terms and conditions of the Memorandum of Agreement so that it can be implemented. Okay? And you see here what are supposed to be doable so that that MOA can be implemented. But a long time after happened, passed, and nothing came out of this one until it was overtaken by, the next slide please, by the memorandum of before the memorandum of President Arroyo. Okay, in 1996, okay, that residual portion, 4.2 hectares previously allocated to Philippine Science High School, was declared under Proclamation number 857. That was allocated in favor of the Ombudsman, okay, and that is a very specific allocation to the Office of the Ombudsman. Next slide, please. Okay. However, that proclamation was amended by reducing the area allocated to the Office of Ombudsman from 4.2 hectares to 1 hectare, the one there in dark shade, okay, black shade, okay. And maybe it is very important to state, okay, if you read the text of Proclamation number 1197, it says, and declaring the remaining area of 3.2 hectares for disposition by NHA. Okay. And if I may read here the text, really, the actual text, it even says that for disposition by NHA to other government agencies, because remember, this is a national government center. Okay. That is the clear text of 1197. If I may read very briefly. And declaring 32,326 square meters which shall be disposed as permanent site in favor of other government agencies in accordance with the existing laws and the policy, rules, and regulations of the National Housing Authority on the disposition of institutional properties. Okay. So that gives liberty, free hand on the part of NHA to dispose of these to other government agencies in accordance with its policies. Okay, next slide, please. Then thereafter, okay, that MOA between the DOH and the National Housing Authority was overtaken by events. That was a long 9 years after, okay, it has not been implemented. Sometime in, this is 2001, the MOA between the DOH and the National Housing Authority was in 1992, so 9 years after, because there was no conveyance, there was a memorandum from President Arroyo, okay, so directing the Department of Health to convey the properties in Sambag in favor of the National Housing Authority so that the socialized housing project programs of the government may be implemented. Okay, next slide. And this was followed by a memorandum of the Executive Secretary for all parties, DOH and HA, and HUD-C to implement the directive of President Arroyo. So therefore, in 2003, finally, there was a conveyance. So this was in 2003, following 2 years after the memorandum from the President, okay, the deed of conveyance was executed between by the Department of Health of that Sambag property in Cebu in favor of the National Housing Authority for NHA to undertake necessary surveys and do slum upgrading as part of the program of the President. Now, this is where we are now, okay? The 10,000 that you see there is the one allocated to the Office of the Ombudsman. It was mentioned that the 6,000 there on top in red shade is the one that was declared by the President to be allocated in favor of the Court of Tax Appeals. The NHA has sold, consistent with PD 1197, has sold 5,772 square meters to the Office of the Ombudsman as additional area for Ombudsman purposes. It has also sold below 6,000, something like 2,000 square meters to the Court of Tax Appeals also. And the Court of Tax Appeals has paid for this, so did the Ombudsman. It has paid for 10,000 and that 5,722. Okay, so the one shaded red is the one occupied by the Court of Tax Appeals, okay? And then the one in violet is the right of way between the Office of the Ombudsman and then the Court of Tax Appeals, okay? The one sold to PIDS, okay, is only that you see in green color. 580. It is not the entire area to even encroach the main building of the Philippine Children's Medical Center Hospital. That is not so. Only that small area, 2,508 square meters, has been sold to PIDS, okay, very recently. And so, as you can see, the residual of what should have been under PD, under Proclamation 1197 for disposition by NHA, is that one in blue shade, which is now currently occupied by PCMC, okay? That remains to be unsold, that remains to be occupied by PCMC, and the NHA is not making dispositions of that at the moment.
How about the green area, the one for PIDS? Is it presently occupied by PCMC?
Yes, Your Honor. It contains vital structures to the operations of the hospital as well. 1/4 of our engineering and maintenance building, our parking area, the STP, our oxygen plant is in that green area, Your Honor.
Okay, then. How about where's this brown area, yung number 6? Saan ba yan? Dalawang brown yun eh.
Dalawang brown, Your Honor.
541 nakalagay? Saan yan dyan sa mapa?
That is because the right-of-way that was...
so naka-sandwich in between the purple and that's just a road?
It's a road right-of-way, Your Honor.
Is that occupied also by PCMC right now?
The right-of-way, Your Honor?
Of the Court of Tax Appeals.
It's a right-of-way.
It's a right-of-way.
So, no problem. You're not occupying it.
We're not occupying it because our fence skirts, is in between the green and the purple. So the right of way is no problem for us.
Yung red, yung CTA number 2 and 3.
That's already occupied by the Court of Tax Appeals.
By
yes.
CTA.
Yes, Your Honor.
Really occupied.
So ang pinagtatalunan na lang is the blue number 8
The blue and the green.
And the green.
Yes, Your Honor.
As far as you're concerned.
Yes, sir.
That's your only concern.
Yes, sir.
Including
Okay.
the white, the one on the right.
Including the one on
The
the
main-
right,
the main building.
because
It's not been paid for.
hindi pa rin daw
Including the
napipay.
building.
Oo.
Okay.
Yeah, pero nakuha na rin lang yung DOH Sambag property.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Cool ka lang.
Yeah.
Cool ka lang. Let's let them finish. Please, Attorney Pagunsan, please finish.
Total, next slide. Okay, then presently occupied with PCMC. So if at all, the one in dotted lines is where PCMC facilities, open areas are now situated. That will be a total of, to include PIDS, that will be a total of 36,000. 3.6 hectares, Your Honor. 3.7.
Yeah, it says 3.7.
3.7.
3.7.
So, if we exclude PIDS, which has been sold, then it's a little smaller than 3.7 hectares. Okay. Next slide. So, we state as that, in conclusion, the position of the NHA, it is admitted that there was in fact a conveyance by the DOH of its properties in Sambag. Okay. The position only of the NHA is looking at a timeline. It would seem that it was not really in pursuance of the memorandum of agreement entered into between the Department of Health and the National Housing Authority sometime way back in 1992, because this really happened only in 2003, after the memorandum of the President to finally instruct HUD-C, DOH, and NHA to effect a conveyance for purposes of the socialized housing program of the government.
Why? What would you call the 1992 agreement? How would you classify that?
That because
You're saying that you do not recognize it?
because, Your Honor, after in the memorandum of agreement, there was a reference to 6.3 hectares. However, in between, there were incidents that happened, like there was the proclamation in favor of the Ombudsman, there was the proclamation in favor of the Court of Tax Appeals, there were dispositions made by the National Housing Authority to other government agencies, pursuant to Proclamation number 1197, it would seem that that property of NHA that was mentioned in the original MOA between the DOH and the National Housing Authority is not there anymore. Maybe a portion which has not been disposed as flashed here on the screen, and then to the mind of the NHA, because when the MOA was executed, that was in 1992, there was a follow-up letter right after by General G.M. Bala of the NHA to already effect a transfer. None transpired, and then 9 years had happened, and then there was that directive from President Gloria Arroyo, and it would seem like it only happened because there was that memo from the President and from the Executive Secretary, and
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
I cannot help it. You said there was no transfer, but in fact, the Cebu property was in fact subdivided and sold. What's the present status now, Mr. Chito Cruz, Attorney Chito Cruz, with regards to the Cebu property? Have they been in fact subdivided?
Yes, Your Honor.
They're they're titled in your name, in NHA's name?
Yes, and now being transferred pursuant to the beneficiaries under our socialized housing project.
Okay then. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Senator Aquino.
follow up. How much is the total land of the Cebu property? Ano po yung valuation nun? Could you speak,
It's
Attorney Pagunsan?
5.9 hectares.
And how much is the 5.9 hectares in that? There's a valuation for that 5.9 hectares now, surely.
The value in 2003 is about, the zonal value is about 8,000 per square meter, so the total would be 547,465,000.
How much is it right now?
Which one? The value of the
Yes,
Sambal
of the
property?
5.9 hectares in Cebu.
At the time of the conveyance, sir, these are the valuations. per
This is
square
the
meter.
this is the present.
Appraised value in 2003 to 2007. That is the period.
We don't have the present as of now, Your Honor, but the value that I've given you is the zonal valuation for 2003 to 2007. But let me just say that because we have already converted and implemented our socialized housing project for the area, we stand to recover 116 million only from all of the beneficiaries for this project.
No, but that's because that's your mandate, no, to sell it at a lower cost, no. But the value per se is not necessarily what you will get from it, but how much is the zonal value, no? So so we don't know the zonal value in Cebu in that particular barangay right now, because 2007 is 7 years ago.
We don't have that available right now, but we can give it to you. Your
Okay.
Honor.
Attorney, no, first of all, no, let me just say that in fairness to NHA, no, in the past year, they have not really moved to dispose of that blue area, no, as we had agreed on last year, no. So let me just put that on record. But right now, and this was also my my plea last year, was that we settle this as soon as possible. Until now, it's still an unsettled issue, no? At least for PCMC and for you, kasi settled kayo, it's yours, diba? But obviously for PCMC and DOH, it's not a settled issue. Now, the zonal value of the 5.9 hectares, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had that, did we have that, was that information given previously by PCMC? How much that 5.9 hectares is right now? That's in the center of Cebu City, right? Nasa gitna yun ng Cebu City. I'm
Yes,
sure
Your
it's
Honor.
more than 8,000 square meters at this point. Because if we're making the case of value per value, I think the value of the Cebu property is more than the 1.2 billion you're asking from PCMC, no, if I'm not mistaken. So in short, if you're saying that value per value, you want to make a swap, you already have that property. You're basically saying, Attorney Pagunsan is putting out a defense that we don't have the, how do you call it? We don't have the assessment of the value because that was not constituted in 1992. Is that what you're saying, no, Attorney Pagunsan? If we were to do that now, whose property would be more valuable? I think the Cebu property is more valuable, which you've already disposed of, and which is already under the, I don't know if the right term is custody, ownership, no, of NHA, no. So my question then, with the indulgence of the chairperson, is, would you agree to do the swap now? I mean, you already have the Cebu property. Would you agree to do a valuation and then push through with the swap?
Let me just put on record the position of NHA. Our position is that there was we admit that there is really a MOA for the swapping, but our position is the MOA for the swapping was not consummated, simply because there were, number one, the property that was being given to us by DOH is occupied by informal settlers. Number two, there are actually claimants to the ownership of portions of those properties. Number three, there were institutional buildings in that property. That's why we waited for 9 years until the time that the President Arroyo instructed us to convert this into socialized housing site. In fact, there was no need for President Arroyo to order us to convert this into socialized site if indeed the MOA or the swapping occurred or was consummated. The fact that there was none, we were ordered by President Arroyo to do the socialized housing for this area.
No, but Attorney Cruz, no, when you disposed of that land to the, to your constituents, as you should do, no?
Yes.
You weren't doing it for DOH. You were doing it as your land.
We were doing it because we were directed by President Arroyo, who directed DOH to transfer to us, not because there was a MOA for the land swap.
No.
But
Attorney Cruz, no, we have the memo here. She refers, let me read it. Okay, this is February, dated February 2001.
At this point, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Lauren Legarda. Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning.
Can you get me the memo of GMA? Let me quote, Memo, February 2, in line with the Anti-Poverty Trust, so on and so forth, immediately undertake the conveyance of lands being administered by the DOH located at Barangay Sambag 2 in Cebu City to the NHA. The subject lands are those provided in the Memorandum of Agreement between the DOH and the NHA dated February 4, 1992. So there is reference to a swap. So it's not like she just gave it, oh, ito na, inyo na. Meron siyang reference to a swap that was not consummated. You're right, it was not consummated. Now that we have this information, you're selling the lot of DOH as NHA because right now you're claiming that it's yours, but you do admit that there was this document which swapped the lands, no? So I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Attorney Cruz, no, but we want to move forward. If you do recognize that there was a swap, why don't we fulfill the swap?
We have no problem with that, Your Honor. We just need some sort of a legal cover because as far as our books is concerned, the property remains to be NHA and there was no consummated swap in our books. So I think it's important also that DOJ is here. Maybe
Yes.
we can
ask
on the issue, or maybe what we can just do is we can submit our position paper to the DOJ, and if the DOJ would render an opinion that there was indeed a swap, then we have no problem. We will abide by that decision and deduct whatever corresponding amount is due to be deducted from the sale.
Thank you, Attorney Cruz. Maybe you can ask DOJ for a comment.
I would agree with the suggestion of NHA because there are other facts that are really conflicting. For one, there is existence of RA 72 27, that's 7277, which had been considered in determination of in the issuance of the proclamation, because for all intents and purposes, the RA cannot be superseded by a proclamation, by issuance by a president. That should be considered. There are also other facts and other events that took place, which for one or the other rendered or affected the implementation of the other law. So I would suggest that you refer the matter to us, specifically to the legal, the Office of the State Counsel, so that we can evaluate the documents and then render our position.
Senator Legarda is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Aquino. May I know whether the lot in question is still the original whole lot, or because from what I read from the briefer, there have been areas of the lot which have been sold already to individual occupants, etc., or is it simply the area where the Philippine Children's Medical Center is occupying now? Unless this question was answered already earlier before I arrived, because there was a bigger portion and then the swap was not realized, and then there were individual lots that were subdivided and sold And then there are other government agencies, namely the Ombudsman and the Court of Tax Appeals, which is occupying portions of the lot. And then the PCMH, Philippine Children's Medical Center, is straddling now on 2 lots, right? See? So, my question is, are we speaking about the donation of the whole property, which could be a bit complicated because some lots were individually sold? Or are we speaking about a smaller lot which is part of the original big lot where the hospital is located?
Can we have that slide again? Okay. The property that is now being occupied by PCMC is the one in blue, as well as the unshaded portion on the
Blue
right.
meaning the residual area.
Yes, Your Honor, the residual area. Yes,
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the graph, not the picture.
yes.
Okay, the blue is the residual area, and that is the one occupied by the Philippine Children's Medical.
Yes, including...
13, what
yeah,
is
including the one in green, ma'am.
1.3 hectares?
1.3, including the one in green, that's 2,500 square meters. And the one on the right is about 2.1 hectares. That's the property being occupied by PCMC.
That is available. There would not be any conflict with any other government institution or any claimants because of lands at individual lots that were sold beforehand. Yes.
Yes, with the exception of the green one, ma'am, that was sold to PIDS. Yes, but we have an outstanding agreement with PIDS that if PCMC would be able to cover the payment for this, then we will look for another space for PIDS.
Would the Philippine Children's Medical, PCMC, be amenable to simply the blue area of the 1.3 hectares, or would it be important that you have the green and the blue?
Your Honor, it is important for us to include the green because right now it includes vital structures of the hospital is necessary for its operation.
So that it's clear, it's the 1.3 and the 2.8.
It's the white, Your Honor, it's the white, the blue, and the green.
Oh, there is no white in the matrix, so what would that be?
With the main building of the PCMC.
But
Yes.
I'm looking at the matrix.
Yes,
What
Your
is the
Honor.
white?
Yeah, the white is the existing PCMC building, and that we consider that this is really that area that was allotted to them under their charter.
And just so that it's clear, so that because we may be confused. So we are not actually asking for the other government institutions, such as the Court of Tax Appeals, the Ombudsman, and those which were previously sold individual lots to vacate. So it is less complicated than that. There is a present lot occupied by the Philippine Children's Medical, the white portion, and there is the what you call residual area of the 1.3 hectares, is that correct? And a 2,800 square meter portion that is occupied by the Philippine Institute of Development Studies.
2,500 po. Your Honor. Yes, yeah.
They are willing to once it's sold. So the problem now is they have to pay you. But this is clearly a government institution that treats the poor. In fact, if I may mention, when there was PDAF, I would devote a part, substantial part of my PDAF. I've always supported the Philippine Children's Medical Center. I think Dr. Julius knows this, and my dear doctor who takes care of my bones, Dr. Vince. So I have to, sort of there's transparency, no? Yes, I support the PCMC, etc. And these are two government institutions. So we can solve this. It's mas mahirap kung private sector eh. Is there anything in the NHA that would bar the donation of NHA to Philippine Children's Medical Center? Is there anything in your makakuha ba kayo, ombudsman, bawal ba mag-donate?
Actually,
malulugi ba kayo kung i-donate nyo sa...
actually, the reason why we also presented before how we got to own these properties. This property was purchased by our predecessor using our own money, also, ma'am. So, in all other government agencies that was given their lot for this government agency area, they paid for all of their property, with the exception of CTA, which under the proclamation we were directed to convey
Very
to them.
good.
Yes.
So if the President issues a proclamation where NHA will donate it to the Philippine Children's Medical Center, you will abide.
Yes, of
So
course.
we call on the
are.
President to donate the land to the Philippine Children's Medical Center. Hindi, ganun pala eh. Because, yes, thank you for that. But, you know, I really did it.
Actually, Senator,
yes.
if I may add, no, another president.
Aquino,
No, if I may add, no, actually another president already fixed that, no, because the first President Aquino, Cory Aquino, already had a swap between the land in Cebu and the land here in Quezon City.
which was not realized.
Which was realized on one side. It was realized on the side of NHA. Is that fair to say, Attorney Cruz? It is fair to say that, diba? It was consummated on your side. Because you took the land and as is your mandate, you fulfilled your mandate. That's fair to say, diba?
We confirm, Your Honor, that the land was conveyed to us by DOH. But again, we need to have a legal ruling on that. Because our position is really the conveyance that was ordered, even in the conveyance order itself of for that property, did not mention any, except for the memo that you read a while ago. In the conveyance, there was no mention of this one.
That letter of President, that memo of President Arroyo referred to the memo of President Aquino, of Secretary Benson and GM Balao at that time, and in that swap, the Cebu property of DOH was swapped for the property in Quezon City, and it was consummated on one side, but the land was not fully transferred to DOH. So, in effect, at least my understanding is, and we will welcome the DOH legal opinion here, is that the DOJ legal opinion here is that that land does already belong to DOH by virtue of that swap. No.
Yes. Would you be willing, if the DOJ issues an opinion and says it's okay for you to give it to PCMC? Would you comply?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
As long as we have a...
So we have two options now, na klaro. One is a presidential proclamation, which you said you would comply.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, it is not the first time there is a precedent based on the bigger lot, and there was a presidential proclamation donating it to the Court of Tax Appeals. Okay.
Yes. So a second would be a DOJ opinion, and a third would be a law, which we were talking about. But a law might be, mas mahaba yan kasi dadaan pa sa Congress, sa Senate, BICAM, and all. So, yes, Mr. Attorney Cruz.
There's a fourth one, Your Honor.
You see, NHA is even providing us more options now to comply.
What is the fourth one? Magbayad sila. Wala na pera.
What's the fourth one?
The Senate provided a budget so that they can settle their
There's actually a fifth one, Mr. Chairman. The fifth one.
Yeah, that's one option. Fourth, the fifth one.
The fifth one is to make this a null agreement, return the property of the Cebu property to DOH, have them sell that, and then pay you for the proceeds. That's a fifth option also, if I'm not mistaken, no?
Well, we can do that, but unfortunately, Your Honor, we already distributed it through a socialized housing, and they will only recover 116. That's more to their disadvantage.
So you used that land already. Nagamit nyo na yung property na yon, no? Okay, so, okay, we'll just wait for the DOJ opinion on this matter.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Ligardo.
Yes, may I know whether the PCMC is paying rent now, and how much is it?
No, we did not pay any rent, Your Honor. Yeah.
So it's not part of your overhead.
No, no.
Let me take advantage of this opportunity. May I ask the PCMC, what are your needs?
For the lot, for
No,
the,
more than the lot. We go
the
beyond the lot.
expansion-
What are your needs so that we provide the best medical care for indigent children of our country?
equipment, Your Honor, and
You
expanding the
name, put on
building.
record everything that you need so that there are two vice chair of finance here. Do you chair the standing committee? So we convert this to a finance hearing as well. Nandiyan na rin kayo eh. But I don't I don't chair the health budget. You chair the health budget. Ayan.
I chair the health
Okay,
budget.
can you read your shopping list for Christmas for the PCMC?
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I assure you that the good chairman will introduce it as his amendments, which we both will support. We will find a way to make sure it is earmarked. Remember, this is not DAP, this is not PDAF. It is earmarking so that those equipment, capital outlay, whatever you need, MOE, whatever concerns,
Expansion of
so
the
that we
building.
have a state-of-the-art, we have the best facilities for indigent children, assuming charity at libre ang inyong mga pasyente po.
Yes, Your Honor. Yeah, because you're serving mostly the poorer patients.
Yes.
I think we can source that from the HFEP, the Health Facilities Enhancement Program of the Department of Health. What do you think, Yusek?
That is being we'll propose it with under the program, sir.
Yan, kaya nga tinan mo, magandang tinanong ko, magaling si TG mag-source. Magaling yan eh. Oo, kaya sabihin na nyo, equipment. Magkano aabot yung equipment na kailangan nyo? At ano pong mga klaseng equipment?
For 4 billion. We have been talking with the Department of Health because we're actually planning to expand the hospital and add 300 more beds to serve more patients, particularly the poor patients. And right now, we're talking with the Department of Health on how to source the 4 billion that is needed for the expansion of the hospital with a new building and the equipment. And that's why Dr. Gomez was saying that we need to settle the issue of the land so that we could proceed with the development of all of these infrastructures, investments in the hospital as well.
Sandali. Also, talking about expansion, you know, not everybody's from Luzon. I, for one, and Yusek Gako of the Department of Health, taga Mindanao kami. So, I'm sure you'd be open to having a PCMC in Mindanao.
Certainly, sir. We would welcome that, and we will be...
we will direct NHA to identify lands for them to...
That's actually a very good idea. Right now, isa lang kayo.
Isa lang, yes.
Dapat at the minimum, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Oo. Pero tama. So, Senator TG, first, before Christmas, you settled the issue of the land. Either it's presidential proclamation or the DOJ opinion, which they agreed they will follow. The magnanimous heart of Attorney Chito Cruz is revealed in this hearing, and we thank the NHA for their cooperation and support that before Christmas, we don't have to enact a law. This land issue, which has been pending for decades, will be settled. So, issue na yan. Okay, basta before Christmas, before we adjourn, dapat na-settle na yan. Either you talk to your cousin or you talk to kayo nang bala. And second, Dr. Lecciones will submit to the Vice Chair of the Finance Committee who chairs the health budget your wish list so that can earmark it from the DOH budget.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah. We will
Third,
immediately.
NHA will identify the land that they own na walang kalaban for H&N's Medical Center in the Visayas, whether region 6, 7, 8, whatever, maganda, 8 para Tacloban affected areas. And then in Mindanao, kung gusto ni TG, region 10, kasi yun ang kanyang rehiyon. Saka, kasi, sendong affected area. Yun naman, hindi dahil lang si TG nandun. So, maganda, nagbunga pa ng maganda ito. Ayun. So, those submissions of properties in Visayas and Mindanao will be given before plenary so that we pass your budget. Given to the chair. Ayun.
Yeah, I'd like
Senator Aquino?
I'd like to ask Yusek Gako. Parang you haven't spoken yet on the matter of the land, no? So can we have the official DOH position regarding the PCMC issue and the NHA, no?
First of all, Honorable Chair, good morning. We have seen that in the original NUA, the areas that were mentioned is 9 for Cebu, 9 hectares for Cebu, and 6.4 for for the NHA. But in the actual now, there were reductions already. So the total area that is remaining for PCMC that is owned by NHA is 3.7 from 6.4, 3.7 now. And the original, the Cebu area was 9 hectares, but what was used was something like 5.9. I don't know if there is a need for a new MUA to really specify the actual area that is now being that is to be occupied by the PCMC versus that 5.9 that was already used by NHA. So I have conferred with the executive director that they are amenable with the 3.7 and the swapping of the 5.9 that was already used in Cebu City.
So the official position of DOH is i-consummate na yung swap, no need to have a full valuation since na-dispose na naman yung nasa Cebu. Just allow PCMC to utilize what's left of the original 6 hectares. Okay. Yes, Attorney.
Your Honor, yeah, even in our other transactions, one of our board members, DOF, and they would insist that when we do transactions, it should be value for value. So maybe request, Your Honor, that included in the issues to be resolved by DOJ would be the valuation of our property as well as the property that was covered by Sumbag, if ever indeed DOJ would rule that there was really consummated land swap in this case.
Attorney Cruz, yung 1.2 billion price tag that you had raised for that property, what value were you using dun sa per square meter?
About 40,000 po. It's the same value, it's the same amount consideration for the NKTI property that we sold 2 years ago.
And how is that number determined?
Appraisal. That's appraised by appraisal both NHA and NKTI.
Okay. So commercial value.
Okay, let's ask the other resource persons who are here today what they wish to, kung anong gusto sabihin nila. Let's start with the head convener of AKAP Bata, Ms. Ana sa floor. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning po sa lahat. Bali po yung AKAP Bata ay since nagkaroon po ng NHA eviction notice sa PCMC, as a child rights groups ay sumusuporta po doon primary to the health and welfare of the Filipino children. Then 60% po kasi ng families na patients ng PCMC ay under marginalized sectors. So we are supporting and support the struggle of the PCMC by donating the land. Ngayon po, for us, for AKAP Bata, we're glad na sinabi po na kailangan magkaroon pa po ng mga public hospitals for the children nationwide because yung PCMC po, nationwide din yung kanyang kinikater na mga batang galing sa maralitang sektor. Kaya po, nandun po yung aming boses to support the PCMC. And then, isa pa po, kung gusto po natin mabigyan ng proper healthcare, ma-providean po natin yung mga bata, no? Tama po na i-develop yung mga facilities, magdagdag ng mga hospital na pampubliko, and magbigay ng libre and affordable na serbisyo para po sa mamamayang Pilipino. Yung lamang po, and syempre po, always na yung ating pong binibigay na serbisyo ay for the Filipino people, serving the Filipino people, yun po.
Maraming salamat po. But I would like to, did you ever serve an eviction notice?
That's why we want to go on record po. Number one, wala kaming collection letter po that was sent to PCMC. And because of that, we did not issue any eviction notice. For the last, 30 years po, naghihintay lang kami ng mabayaran ng NHA for this property. But I understand that they have some programs or they would like to undergo expansion. That's why they also want title of this property. And we're willing to help them get that.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Mr. Paul Perez, the President of Project Brave Kids.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. On behalf of Project Brave Kids, we are honored to lend our voice to the fight to have the lot properly donated to PCMC. As a parent of a child who went through cancer treatment in PCMC, we feel saddened that such things do happen. It just deviates from the mandate of PCMC to provide good service, medical service to the Filipino children. So we do hope and pray that this is settled ASAP. So if it be it before Christmas, then that's the biggest Christmas gift to the Filipino children. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, well said. Yung President ng Samahan ng mga Kawani ng PCMC, Miss Lucina Encina. Ma'am?
Good morning po. Ako po si Lucila Encina, Presidente ng PCMC, na mula lang nung lumabas sa Inquirer noong September 2013 na i-evict yung PCMC sa kinatatayuan niya. Doon lumabas ang mga empleyado at tinulungan ang management na wag sanang ituloy yon. Pasensya na, nagiging emotional ako.
Sige lang ma'am, okay lang.
Kaya kung ngayon ang pinag-uusapan natin ay by end of this year, maibibigay sa amin ang titulo ng lupa, patuloy kami maninilbihan sa mga pasyenteng mahihirap at tuloy-tuloy pa rin ho ang aming pagmamodernize sa aming ospital. At maraming salamat sa okasyon na ito na ibinigay ninyo sa amin tungkol sa PCMC at sa titulo ng lupa na kailangan namin. Salamat po.
Kung mabibigay yung titulo nyo, proclamation bago mag-Christmas, siguro hingin ko lang, imbitahin nyo yung NHA sa Christmas party nila.
Oo naman po.
Okay, the immediate past President, Lungsod ng Kabataan, PCMC Medical Alumni Association, Dr. Sonia Gonzalez, ma'am.
Good morning. I just want to emphasize that PCMC's mission is not just to give service, but also the training of young doctors to become pediatricians and also pediatric subspecialists. And up to this time, PCMC has already produced around 550 pediatricians all over the country, and around 350 pediatric subspecialists in its 34 years of existence. And may I say that our alumni are all over the country and that they are willing to man the PCMC Visayas and the PCMC Mindanao.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Who else wishes to speak? LRA? Anything on your part? Attorney Diaz?
Good morning, Your Honors. We have no anything to say because everything is titled as it is now, but we will comply to the best judgments of the parties involved. And I'd like to put on record that despite the fact that my sister works at PCMC, I will have no biases here, Your Honor.
Okay. Attorney, well, DOJ, you've already spoken, no? So is there anyone that wishes to say anything else?
Just a final question, Mr.
Senator Ligarda?
Mr. Chairman, just a final question. Ilang bata po ang sinoserve nyo sa isang araw o isang buwan? Ilang maralitang bata po?
Sa buong taon, ang OPD consultations namin, mahigit 72,000. 90% doon service patients. Sa emergency room, mga nasa 20,000 consultations, halos lahat service patients.
Yung service, charity po?
Charity yun.
Hindi po kayo nagto-turn away ng batang mahirap na walang deposito?
Ay, hindi kami...
Lahat po ina-attend ninyo?
Yes.
Ang mga batang lansangan, ang mga batang aksidente, mga batang walang magulang, dadalhin po dyan, they will attend to the
Yes po, lahat po tinatanggap
namin. It is
namin.
the only hospital in the Philippines that deals with charity service for the poor children of our country.
Yes, ma'am. The specialized diseases in children.
What are these specialized diseases?
Cancer patients, neurological patients, critical care, yung mga na-ICU,
okay.
Neonatal, mga
Neonatal.
prematures,
Okay.
lots of problems of adolescents that requires specialists, kidney problems in children, liver, perinatal, and pediatric surgery, congenital diseases.
Yung aking dalawang batas on screening, una yung newborn screening, pangalawa yung newborn hearing screening. Ito ba ho, alam ninyo
Yeah.
Ito ba ho ay pinapatupad sa inyo?
At sinusuportahan namin at karamihan ng mga eksperto na sa amin
Very good, because we enacted those laws in my first term and second term respectively. So I just wanted to make sure that you're compliant with our laws.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Senator, this is an occasion for me to really thank you personally also kasi totoo po yung sinabi ninyong mga natulungan ninyo sa ospital na nirefer sa amin na lahat iinisikaso po namin at
dapat magpasalamat sa inyo. Pero ngayon, magpapasalamat po tayo kay Senator TG dahil siya
At
po
of
ang
course,
chairman ng budget ninyo. Totoo. Kaya, wag po matapos ang araw na ito na hindi po nyo na isumite yung inyong makailangan para ma-earmark niya sa DOH budget yung pangangailangan ng PCMC. At pangalawa, hindi masama na ilagay na ni Senator TG yung provision sa 2015 budget maski panimula lang ng Visayas at Mindanao kasi si Attorney Cruz hahanap na yan ng lupa mamaya sa Visayas at Mindanao para pag makahanap siya bago matapos ang taon, magawa ng 2015, meron ng panimulang pondo ang PCMC. Hindi ba, TG?
Okay. One small question lang is, do you have a burn center?
wala pa ngayon pero nasa East Avenue kasi ang pinaka nire-refer sa amin o may pumupuntang specialist doon kung may kailangan pa doon sa hindi lang burn kundi may problema din sa kidney niya o mga komplikasyon.
Okay.
Pero kung mag-expand ang ospital namin, makakagawa din kami doon.
Okay.
Sa Mindanao din po, makakagawa kami kung...
Do you treat tuberculosis? Ang tuberculosis?
Yes.
TB?
Yes, lalo. At saka dengue, ang dami-dami
Dengue.
namin.
Okay, since all the issues have been cleared up and the possible avenues of solution they're all there, sa tingin ko asa yung PCMC na mananatili sila dyan sa...
Chairman, maybe a question to DOJ. When can they come up with a legal opinion? DOJ, how long will you need to come up with a legal opinion?
If you can give us today, but just a point of, I would like to state that contrary to the statements by the NHA, the memorandum itself stated or quoted the conveyance. So that is an admission of that there is an consummated conveyance.
Kaya po ba within November? May legal opinion na within November? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes daw. By November, may legal opinion daw.
Maraming salamat.
Mr. Chairman, dapat magbigay po kayo ng timeline. Ito ang date, takdang araw ng bigay ng DOJ opinion. Ito ang takdang araw na ang NHA magko-comply. Ito ang takdang araw na si Pangulo ay maaring magbigay ng presidential proclamation na kakausapin ninyo. Ganun. Para may, kasi after hearing, baka, yan, makalimutan.
Nagbibigay yung sa amin si Secretary, nagbibigay yung sa amin ng due date na kung kailan matatapos ng ang trabaho, ang legal opinion.
Meron tayong by Wednesday, tomorrow's our last day, no? Then we go on break, and then we come back November 20. November 20, maybe by that time we would have an opinion. Can you say yes on the mic para ito on record?
Yes, Your Honor. Because from the junior lawyer, it will go to me. I am in charge of the opinion side. So I can guarantee you, if the junior lawyer cannot finish the job, I will take it and I will resolve it.
Okay. Attorney Chito Cruz.
Maybe let's set timelines. So, we're submitting our position paper probably in 10 days, and probably DOH can do the same, and then we'll ask another 10 days to comment on their position paper, and then they can comment on our position paper. Then we can submit the same for resolution.
Ganito na lang. I'll talk to Secretary Laila de Lima so that she can expedite everything soonest. Okay, on that note, this hearing is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much. Okay, buddy. Ikaw talaga.
Kasi una doktor ko si Vince, father-in-law ni Bam. Pangalawa, naglalagay ako ng pita sa tiyan. At parang isanay ko, bakit dito lang? So, maglagay ka na ng vice chair naman, kaya mo yan, i-rehash yung budget. Maglagay ka na ang provision for 250 for expansion, maski maliit lang. I-compel mo si NHA. Sino may handle ng NHA budget?
Ako rin.
Ay, ang galing mo. Ano mo ito? Whenever tumutong ka Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, yan yung champion ito. Ito, NHA budget, i-compel ko sila na may maliit mo pa. Maliit na, maski less na hektar, maski na 1,000 square